All right, let's now make sense of all that has been happening on the political front, as well as the permutations and combinations in the build-up to the APC presidential primary, as well as the search for a vice president by PDP presidential flag bearer. Let's bring in our panelists, renowned journalist, policy strategist, and Arise analyst Waziri Adio, as well as PDP stalwart Kassim Afegbua. Join us now here in the studio.
Indeed. And also joining us from Lagos, our multiple award-winning journalist, Deji Bademosi, as well as the host of the daily program All Out Politics and political pundit, Azubike Osumili. Gentlemen, welcome to the news. Let's begin in the studio here, Waziri Adio. I think a good place to start would be the APC screening. From 23, they became 13. Does this speak to the thoroughness of the exercise?
Well, in a way, it does. We also need to be clear what APC is doing. Are they screening and eliminating 10, as they have said? Or are they making recommendation to the president about the people that should be considered to be chosen as one of the anointed? My sense is that they might have erred in the way they went about it. If you look at Section 42 of the Constitution, it says you cannot discriminate against anybody on the basis of. Look at Section 137 of the Constitution. It specifies the conditions under which you can disqualify somebody from being a president of Nigeria. And it talks about whether somebody is sane or not, established and proven. If somebody is bankrupt, if somebody has been convicted, if somebody has been found guilty by the Code of Conduct Tribunal in the last 10 years, and some other things. If you also look at Section 84(3) of the Electoral Act, it says that parties cannot impose any extra conditions for disqualified candidates except those stated in the Constitution. So APC will have to say the reason why they have disqualified these people. And if the reasons fall outside of what is in the Constitution and what is reinforced in the Electoral Act, I think the party is opening itself up for litigation. And the party stands the risk of not being adjudged to present a candidate for the election.
Right. Kassim Afegbua, you are of the PDP, and I'm sure you'll be more interested in what's happening within your own party. Well, only last week, Abubakar Atiku emerged the flag bearer of the PDP. You were once his spokesman, and then later, of course, you have been on the other side against him. What do you make of his emergence and the process that led to his emergence?
Well, thank you very much. I have spoken in this same platform, and I've made my position very clearly known. I was a spokesman of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council in 2019 when we marketed Atiku Abubakar. My position about him now remains the same, that in the 21st century, with his age, with the region he comes from, he shouldn't be representing. After President Buhari 8 years, he should naturally go to the south if we want to balance the political algorithms in the country, if we want to, carry people along, if we want to also eliminate the cries of marginalization, politics of exclusion that has become so dominant discourse in the polity. And so for me, his emergence, some people may celebrate it, I'm not celebrating it. Because for one, now they said there was no zoning in PDP, they eliminated it, but now they are searching for vice presidential candidate from the southern part of the country. That's a contradiction. I will expect that Atiku Abubakar should take a running mate from Kano or Katsina or Northwest or North Central, so that they know that there was no zoning, because they said no zoning. And so if you say no zoning, why do you want to zone VP to the south? So for me, I don't want people to, embark on a voyage of contradiction, and when it suits them, and when it doesn't suit them, they preach the other side. So PDP has its own internal squabbles. There are quite a number of states that will have crises. I expect the national chairman to also begin the process of reuniting, all the factors and variables. And also, I also expect the national chairman to also, keep his word that he will resign if a northerner becomes a
All
candidate.
right. Deji Bademosi, good to see you. Thank you for being on the news tonight. Let's talk about the APC and its screening. 23 to 13, but we must also point out that this is just what it is by that committee recommendation. It's not binding on the party. We expect the NWC to make a decision. We don't know if they will go with it. But what do you make of the entire process so far with the APC ahead of the convention or the presidential primary?
Well, you must accept the fact that with the APC, it's been quite dramatic. Dramatic in the sense that we've seen quite a lot in the past few weeks. And I think the statement, for instance, made by the president when he met with the governors and other stakeholders of the party recently, asking that he be given the opportunity to choose or select, if you like, the candidate of the party. Of course, that's a big talking point. And then the clearance, of course, of 13 candidates, aspirants now, nothing new. I heard the first person who spoke and who talked about the provisions of the Constitution. I'm very, very sure that the members of that panel would certainly know the provisions of the Constitution. The truth is that the party would have its own criteria now, and the clearance must have been based on that criteria. But the good thing is that those who were not cleared still have the opportunity to appeal, and if their appeal is accepted, then fine and well. But we must also concede to the fact that, having about 23 aspirants, contest, that's if at all there would be any kind of election during the primary now, with what President Buhari said, it wouldn't be too tidy. When you consider the logistics of it, you also consider the fact that having 23 persons running for a ticket, and then you can imagine how long the process will be. So I think that's the reason why the party is doing everything it can to ensure that, if possible, it comes up with a consensus. But how that consensus now is where the big deal is, because for me, if the president is asking that he be given the opportunity to choose the candidate of the party, you would say that is not consensus as such, because this would be coming from him. So it means he would be choosing who the candidate is, and then other members of the party would have to fall in line. It's a good thing, of course. He said he's going to be consulting with other stakeholders of the party, but there's no question at all that he would have the biggest say in who, with what we are seeing now, with who becomes the candidate of the party. So I think we're still in for more drama in the coming days with the APC.
Yes, indeed, and a lot of drama has been unfolding in the last few days. Let me bring in Azubike Osumili. Let me quote what who's been described as the national leader of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. I made Buhari president, Oshibajo vice president, Abiodun governor of Ogun State, of course. What do you make of this outburst from Bola Ahmed Tinubu and the reactions that have trailed, his outburst so far? Hearing from Abacha Lawal and Tinubu's team trying to explain away exactly what he meant, in that statement. What are your thoughts?
All right, then. Yeah, thank you, Ngozi. I think that, like you rightly said, it was an outburst yesterday. And soon after Bola Tinubu made those comments, unguarded as they were, you'd expect the kind of reactions we're seeing now. You can imagine that people will not just fold their arms and let those statements go. I mean, people are digging into history now and trying to recall the exact moments those things happened. And if indeed they were the right things that really should shape a democracy. Mr. Bola Tinubu was speaking speaking his own truth, like he said. But we were asking the questions, are these democratic practices really? Can a political stakeholder in the political party begin to claim that he actually installed the president, and also went on to say the vice president, I also installed him, and the governor behind my back, I installed you. I mean, they came out as very ridiculous, and that's why you can see the backlash that this has engineered in the last 24 hours. You know, I can see that the Bola Tinubu team now making frantic efforts, you know, to try to control this. They've sent some of their stalwart out on a diplomatic shuttle. Earlier this evening, I saw the former Borno State Governor Kassim Afegbua trying to rationalize those events, but they're unrationalizable, the truth. Those things are already out, and in my opinion, I think it is medicine after death now. And that was why you could hear Ibabachi Lawa, who I thought was in the Bola Tinubu's camp, come out the way he has come out, all fighting, all blazing, saying you can't make those comments. And before you know it, there's a potential of ethnicizing this kind of matter. You know, so I think the better they try to, in a sense, push it away and face the primaries that happens on Monday, the better for them, because it puts the Bola Tinubu campaign in bad light, really. And the words desperation are now being used to try to measure his sentiments. You know, people are now saying that, is it your birthright? You know, must you be president? You know, must it be your turn? And all that. So those comments were unguarded, and it perhaps might shape Mr. Tinubu's campaign as they go into the primaries, if he was cleared, you know, because we know now that 13 were cleared, 10 were not. We don't know who is in that 10. If you ask people, and the party is saying they probably cut the list short using age as a consideration. And if it's age indeed they use, then you probably are afraid that maybe Bola Tinubu has been affected. You know, but Kassim Afegbua said that cannot happen. That Nigeria, that the APC, without having Bola Tinubu on the ballot for these elections, will probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very much. Azubike, we'll return to this discussion. Of course, you're watching Newsnight. Our panel discussion continues right after the break. Stay with us.
Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching Newsnight here on the Rise News channel, and of course we still have our panelists, Rise News analyst Waziri Adio, as well as PDP stalwart Kassim Afegbua. They are with us here in the studio.
That's right, and joining us from Lagos, multiple award-winning journalist Deji Bademosi, as well as the host of the daily program All Out Politics and political pundit Azubike Osumili. Thank you both, gentlemen, and of course the gentleman in the studio with us.
Thank you for staying with us. Let me bring the conversation back to you, Waziri Adio. Before that break, Azubike was speaking about the Bola Tinubu outburst and the reactions, and I want us to continue in that line. When Bola Tinubu says it's the turn of the Yorubas and he fits the bill to become the next president, does it smack of entitlement and self-aggrandizement? And, you know, barely days to the presidential primary of his party, how costly are his remarks?
Well, you know, in politics, all kind of things happen. So my sense was that the man was trying to lay a claim to the ticket, and he was trying to, you know, talk about his credentials, you know, and all of that, you know. But I think maybe certain things came out wrongly, and you find that in political campaigns, you know. Sometimes people just speak out of tongue. You know, I think many things can be said to have gone wrong there. The first thing is that he chose to speak in Yoruba. Maybe the intention was noble. But, you know, many things will get lost in translation, you know. So that's the first thing that I shouldn't have said, I shouldn't have done. The second thing is that maybe you should have said certain things differently. But in terms of the broad facts, in terms of, you know, did he play a role in the emergence of APC and the emergence of President Buhari in 2015? Definitely yes. But the way it came out is a different thing. You know, and the way it will be translated to English and to different languages is also a different thing. But I think beyond that, he was actually, this is my sense, and I might be wrong, I think he was speaking to something larger than that, which is about this tension, you know, this subtext in the ruling party about where to zone the ticket to. After 8 years of President Muhammadu Buhari, I think it's just fair that who is from the north, that it's just fair that he should go to the south. I think maybe that was what he was trying to happen, but at the same time, say if he needs to come to the south, then he needs to come to me. So that's, I think so many things are going on there. And of course, his opponents will also capitalize on that. But you know, politics is very funny. It's not a science. Listening to that and 72 hours to the primaries, you can say this is the end for him. But at the same time, anything can happen.
Yes, indeed, anything can happen. If I'm allowed to quote what Bola Tinubu said, Yoruba lokan, Emi lokan, Kassim Afegbua. Is it really the turn of the Yoruba, the turn of the Southwest presidency 2023? I mean, you have Bola Tinubu making the statement against the backdrop of growing calls that it is only just unfair for it to go to the southeast. I'd like you to address that. And what do you think really are the implications of playing up this ethnic and religious sentiments in driving our politics?
Ngozi, thank you very much. I think politicians don't like to be told the truth. That's just my problem. When you try to speak truth to power, they will say, oh, outbursts and all that. Whether anyone likes it or not, the verdict of history is that Bola Ahmed Tinubu was a pivotal factor of the politics that played out in 2014 and 2015. I was serving in Edo State government, and I was part and parcel of some of the processes, and I saw the role he played amongst other people. So those who are now criticizing him and all that, they were all genuflecting towards him at that period. He was a moving force, and whether you like it or not, without him and the role he played in his political strategy, Atiku Abubakar would have won that primaries in Lagos because of the volume of money that we saw displayed. So when the man was speaking in Yoruba, he said, he has done this, he has done that, he has done this. It should be his turn. What is wrong in that? The verdict is simply that he participated, he has contributed, he has been kingmakers, he has been part and parcel. Even the Dakwabiolu that is talking now, when he was running up and down looking for ticket, they don't always know this, but once they get the position they want, you see them behaving funny. That is where I differ from politicians. I'm an uncommon politician. I don't want to be even called politician. I prefer to be a journalist that I am than to be called a politician, because once there's subterfuge, lies, and all of this, they will say it's politics. Somebody betrays you, it's politics. Somebody stabs you at the back, it's politics. Please, give Bola Ahmed Tinubu his respect. The man has been grooming people, he has been installing people, whether you like it or not. The verdict of history is that President Buhari has contested 3 times before this alliance of APC and all of that. 3 times he didn't win. And he has even said in 2011 that he wasn't going to contest the election again. He's there in history. He went, dragged him out, and said, this time around, I'm going to support you. And the man became president. Why wouldn't you accord him the respect? What is Babachi Lawal talking about? Does he own the country?
Well, Deji Bademosi, I think Babachi Lawal was saying, you know, you cannot disregard the roles played by other people. You did not do this all by yourself, single-handedly. But what do you make of this outburst by Bola Tinubu and the reactions? And what are the likely implications for him barely 76 hours to the national presidential primary?
Well, to tell you the truth, what I tell people is this. What would you have expected Bola Tinubu to say? To say, no, the presidency should not come to the Southwest? Or to say, no, I shouldn't be made the president? Now, put yourself in his position. I mean, he's a politician. What do you expect politicians to say? That's a question I keep asking. Here is a politician who was marketing himself. As far as I'm concerned, that's what he was doing. So every politician in this country would definitely, who had an opportunity. You have 23. There were 23 persons, now cut down to 13. If any of the 13 aspirants who have been cleared now had the opportunity to market themselves, I don't think they would have said anything differently. There's nothing wrong if you campaign, for instance, that the presidency should come to your zone. You have the right to do so. There's nothing wrong if you say, for instance, that the presidency should come to you. of course, you know, at the end of the day, those who would decide would have to decide. I mean, the delegates would have to decide. That's if at all they are going to have elections or what have you. So I honestly think, of course, maybe the way, because he used Yoruba language, and you know, sometimes things get lost in translation when you translate. So I think that would probably have been a problem. Now, has it done any damage to his quest? I do not think so. And let's not also forget, I have a feeling he must have been speaking out of some kind of information he probably got. I wouldn't know. I'm not in his mind. Maybe he got some information from somewhere that got him angry, and you know, he decided to pour out his mind the way he did. But the truth is that, just as Kassim said, you can't deny those facts. You can't deny them. And indeed, the former secretary to the government of the Federation was right when he said, of course, not only he made Buhari, that's certainly correct. Other people too played their roles, no doubt. But we also cannot deny the fact that Bola Ahmed Tinubu played a very significant role. So if he's coming out to say, look, I played that role, then I don't think I don't think it's out of place, because any politician who if any politician had the same opportunity, honestly, they would do the same thing.
Right, Azubike, yes, indeed, we have heard from Bola Tinubu how he was a major factor in, you know, Buhari's success and, of course, the success of the APC. But should he be making a case on the basis of his contribution to the emergence of the APC as a ruling party, or should the case really be that this is what I will do for Nigeria if I get the opportunity to become president? Is Tinubu making a good case for himself? And what would be the implications if there is a parting of ways between Buhari and Tinubu going forward?
I don't foresee that in the immediate future. I don't foresee a parting of ways of any kind. It's what happens in the build-up to politics like this. It gets electric, and that is what is essentially happening. It's becoming hotter by the day. Mr. Tinubu himself is thinking that maybe there's a plot to play me out of this, you know, and he's responding in like manner. Just that those comments, like I say, I insist, were unguarded, and you know, with the retrospection now, he will probably tell himself, I shouldn't have made those comments. That was why we saw the statement by Onanuga signed this evening, trying to say, to calm it, because they knew that this is bad for the optics, really. But Mr. Bola Tinubu deserves to make his claim. Like Kassim Afegbua said, he's been part of the verdict of history, you know, especially in the race to make President Buhari win elections in this country, because that was what essentially he said yesterday. I had to bring the tape, call somebody who understands Yoruba and say, interpret for me, word for word, what is Mr. Bola Tinubu saying here? And he recalled how Mr. Buhari had failed first with Chuba Akadigbo, failed with Edu Bezueke, failed the third time with Bakare, and then gave up until he went to Katsina, brought him and said, don't cry again, I'll make you president. He was probably speaking his truth, yes. But is it good for this time? 3 days before their presidential primary, I think probably hurt his campaign. Deji Bademosi doesn't think so, but I think that in the next 3 days, we'll see how far this will go to probably hurt his campaign, because it's become the talk now, the talk in town. And the comments that are following it are comments like, do you own the party? Are you the only one? What about new PDP and Rotimi Amici and others? We're now hearing those sort of discussions that should not necessitate the build-up to the presidential primary. You know, so in my opinion, I think that, yes, it might affect his campaign, but probably not affect his relationship with President Buhari. They've come a long way. They'll try to manage this, especially if in the end his name is on the ballot and is allowed to contest the primary. They'll find a way. Politicians always find a way anyway. They
always do. Waziri Adio, I mean, we know that 10 people may likely not make it to the final lap of the primaries on Monday and Tuesday. But when you look at all of the candidates, or beg your pardon, the aspirants, and what John Odige Oyegun said today, the criteria the committee used, they said we decided to look at the youthfulness of the aspirants, want to bring them to bear, want them to be seen. When you look at all of the aspirants, where do you think the APC's pendulum is likely to swing? Are they likely to redress the decision by the PDP to jettison zoning and picking an Atiku Abubakar? Is the APC likely to look the other way, to the south? What do you think?
Well, you know, as somebody said, APC has been the king of drama in this electoral cycle. You know, it's difficult to say. It's difficult to say. The first thing is that the president has told us categorically that he's going to play a role in choosing the flag bearer of the party. You know, if you go back to January, he actually said, this was not my problem. You know, but now he said he's interested. It should be, you know, accorded that privilege. So definitely, it depends on who the president chooses as the preferred, you know, aspirant. And that creates all kinds of scenarios. One way would be whoever the president chooses, everybody would respect that and fall in line. And they might have a consensus where everybody would not just say that we'll fall in line, they will withdraw publicly in writing, and they will endorse. This is the condition of the Electoral Act. My sense is that many people have not, including the parties, they've not taken time to study this Electoral Act carefully, especially Section 84 of the Electoral Act. So they can have consensus, it can go to voting, and anything can happen. So if everybody aligns with the president, they will have an election, and it will be a fait accompli. But if it also depends on who the president chooses. If he chooses somebody that is not from the south, for example, and somebody that is not very widely acceptable, it's possible that you know, there might be an upset.
Okay, Waziri Adio, let me come back to Kassim now. Kassim, well, there are chances that indeed 13 aspirants, it will definitely whittle down even more. If you were to hazard a guess, who are those you think may have been dropped? And who do you think is likely to be that person that should, and I use that word advisedly, that should emerge from the APC that can actually tackle an Atiku head-to-head?
Well, you already know my position about issue of zoning the presidency. I think in APC, I'm not a member of APC. I was once a member, and so I know part and parcel of the internal dynamics of the APC, how their mind works. The point is, APC, after 8 years of President Buhari, the APC should take its own candidate from the south. Whoever they choose to take, I can bet you the person will defeat Atiku Abubakar hands down. Because there's too much of overrating for Atiku Abubakar. People are just thinking, oh, is this, is that. But if you look at the demographic you know, statistics of 2019 elections, you discover that his strength was actually from the south. And so if APC takes a candidate from the south and a VP from the north, the chances are very bright for them. And so for me, I don't want us to be thinking of, oh, what about if they're not? No, that shouldn't be the narrative in the APC. If PDP has been able to manipulate the process to favor a northern candidate, APC should stay away from that, particularly President Buhari, who... What happens if
Asiwaju does not, you know, if he gets disqualified? I mean...
You can't, just like Waziri Adio said, you can't disqualify Asiwaju. On what basis? Under the Constitution, it is his inalienable right to vote and be voted for. Okay. It is guaranteed. But
excellent. Because of time, we have to do this very quickly. And back to you, Deji. What do you think? Where's the APC likely to look at? Some said, you know, with the emergence of Atiku, there's trouble in the camp of the APC. But it's not just Atiku. We have a Peter Obi in Labour. We have a Rabi Kwankwaso in NNPP. Presidential candidates are emerging across political parties. Where is the APC likely to look at?
Well, to be candid, it's a very tough one. If it wasn't a tough decision, by now, I mean, you would clearly know where the APC is headed for. It's because it's a very tough decision. That's why we're seeing all this drama play out in the APC. And I think they're doing their calculations, and it's part of the reasons why the APC, for instance, let's not forget that the chairman of the APC made it very clear before now that there was no zoning. At some point, he moderated that comment and said they were going to decide they were going to decide on zoning after maybe the screening and all of that. But the truth is that up till this moment, the party hasn't said anything about zoning. So my take is that the party is not considering zoning at all. And now that the president has said he's going to choose, it all depends on what the president feels, and it depends on who he is actually consulting. So it's a very difficult call to make. But if you ask me, you may say I'm biased, but the truth is that the presidency should come to the South. It's a no-brainer at all. It's not an argument that we should be having in this country, and I think those who are saying it should remain in the North are probably insensitive and are not taking. They are not taking notice of what is happening around the country. So I think the presidency should come to the South, but there's no guarantee that the APC would zone the presidency to the South. It can go anywhere.
You have the final word. Very, very quickly. How tough a decision is it? And what do you make of President Buhari's not even coming up with a name? Barely 3 days to this presidential convention.
President Buhari wants us to read his body language. And I don't know where his body language is swinging to. I mean, experts are trying to decipher where the president is likely to go. And the party decided to not zone, so they are northern candidates, they are northern aspirants now, Ahmed Lawan, Sani Yerima, and the rest. But I think their best interest is in the South, and they should zone to the South. And no other than two major regional aspirants, the Vice President Emil Sibajo and his former godfather Bola Tinubu. I think it's between two of them. And the president is probably leaning towards the latter. And he might not name him, but it's clear, the body language is clear that the president is looking probably to name his vice. It will be very interesting few days, and as they say, in the APC, all better off now.
You can say that again. A very interesting few days to come. Waziri Adio, Kassim Afegbua, Deji Bademosi, Azubike Osumili. Thank you all, gentlemen, for joining us on Newsnight.